Finance Review Group. My personal apologies for being a couple of minutes late getting us started, so let's get on with it. Please note it is intended to live stream tonight's meeting. If successful, a recording of the meeting will be available on the Council's website within 24 hours. Members and officers, please remember to switch microphones on and speak directly into the microphone, and then switch off again after speaking. Reporting officers using Teams, I don't know whether we have any this evening. Okay, so we don't worry about that bit then. Any exempt or private items on the agenda, the live stream will cease prior to the meeting moving into private. There may be a short delay for that. I think we have only one item this evening. So on we go. We don't have any minutes. Apologies for absence.
Yes, Chair. Apologies from Councillor Ali, and we have Councillor Latif who's substituting for him.
Thank you. I remind you of the need to declare any interests that you have either now or when the item comes up. Do we have any Section 106 items?
None that I'm aware of, Chair.
No references from other committees. I don't have any announcements to make, so let's get on with it. Finance updates. Dev, do you have anything you want to report to us, or do you want to go straight into the revenue budget?
So the Q3, we are working on that. So at this stage, I don't have much on the Q3. And if that's okay with your chair, Atika, the finance business partner, has got item 11, HRA. So if that's okay with you, she can go first, and then the revenue I can go through, so she can go home if that's okay with your chair.
Fine, I don't have a problem with that. So we'll move on to the HRA then.
Okay, so first of all, before we start, just want to say there is a change to the table 1 of the report that was circulated, where the HRA surplus currently showing 1.9 million, that's moving to 1.6 million, 1.6 million moving to 1.9 million. And this is lower because of lower than originally estimated financing cost of new developments, where we've taken a more prudent approach to capitalise the interest cost in 25-26. And this is because the new developments, for example, the stage will still be under construction in 25-26, although we would have borrowed some money to pay for that construction. So that's the only change to the report on table 1 to note. Other than that, this is here to consider the draft proposal for 25-26 HRA budget, including rents and service charges. We are proposing an increase in rent for 2.7%. This is in line with the government's rent standard, which is CPI plus 1%. September CPI was 1.7 plus the 1%, so 2.7%. This is for social rent and affordable rent. And just to note, affordable rent will be capped at the lower of 80% of market rent or LHA rate. Also, an increase in the HRA garage rents by 50 pence. The service charge increase or reduction, because service charges are based on actual costs. So that's on the appendix 1, which shows all the service charges. A reduction in leaseholder management fee from £402.95 last year to £376.74 this year. That's a reduction of £26.21. The rent and service charge will take effect from 7th of April 2025, and tenants have been consulted on this. And also the capital programme 25-26 to 29-30, which is also included in the report.
Thank you very much for that. Presume everyone's read the report. So do we have any questions or comments? No. Okay, so we simply note the report and thank you for presenting it,
Thank you.
which takes us on
Next.
then to presumably item 9. Yes.
Thank you, Chair. So I've got the presentation because how many pages? You've got 225 pages. I'm sure you haven't read the whole 20. So I've got the presentation, which will help you. But then I'm sure those who have read the whole report, I'm sure you've got plenty of questions. If there's any specific questions regarding certain item, which is more service related, I'm quite happy to take those and get the relevant department to get the response back. So it just, I think 13 or 14, so not that detailed, but it's captured the essence of the budget. So this is the draft budget, as you will see. It went to the first executive, then it come to scrutiny, and it's going for an engagement process. It will come back to the second executive. There's a timeline at the end of the report, and then it goes to full council for approval. Yeah, so that's a normal process. So next slide, please. Thank you. So just overview, we talk about the financial strategy, on what basis we've prepared the budget. The context is important because the local government finance context, and then what are the changes in the budget cost and income, and you will see how the budget get balanced, what are the additional costs and the income to compensate, and how we balance the budget basically. And then we talk about always the future. So in the next 2 years, 3 years, what the medium-term financial plan look like, because we always say a budget affordability and sustainability. So you can afford it this year, how you will sustain that budget going forward. That's what sometimes we talk the whole life cost over the life of the any project. Then I will touch the provisional local government finance settlement, and you will see that Council like Luton, we receive a bit more in terms of final settlement. So compared to other areas, because I will take you the reason why and how much we receive more compared with our neighboring authorities. I will touch on the capital budget. I will touch on treasury, public health, risk and time scale. So I will be taking all the 2 reports, Chair, i.e. the budget, the capital and the treasury at the same time, because all are linked. If you borrow, you've got revenue budget, revenue implication. So next slide, please. I'm quite happy to take any questions rather than at the end, but if you've got any questions, I'm quite happy to take it, or sometimes some of the questions, maybe the response on the other slides, following slides. So if you can wait, but if there's any burning question, I'm quite happy, Chair. Yeah. So the fundamental principles which guide the decision-making process, we always say we would like to protect as far as possible the vulnerable and needy. And you will see in the budget, we've set aside significant amount of money in terms of social care, children's social care, housing, special education need, transport, supported living. So you will see that's where the bulk of the resources is going towards the vulnerable and needy. All this should align to the council objectives. So you will see in terms of your report, all the capital projects, all the money, if you see all the homelessness, housing, this is a biggest council challenge. And there's significant money going down those objective and strategic priorities. And then you will have investment in IT, you've got projects, and then you've got the other things is like highways, pothole, the pavement. So you will see where those significant investments are going. The budget, you have to balance and take a prudent financial management. So it's got to make sure it's affordable and it's sustainable. So you will be glad to know that this year's budget, although you got a big savings program, we are not using reserves to balance 25-26 budget. But I will be touching a bit on the 24-25, but I'll say how we are going to deal with the deficit of 24-25. Then the initiatives and investment proposal based on robust business case. So the business case, always we talk about 5-case model, and some of the big projects come to FRG before it goes to executive. The stage is being one of them. So we'll have to say whether we can afford it, whether it's achievable, so it's deliverable, and then the whole life of the project, 20 years, whether we can sustain that level of investment. But like a lot of, like when you talk about TAPS, which is temporary accommodation purchase scheme. There's always a business case. If you're buying, for how long we'll keep the properties, what are the savings you are going to make. So those are some key fundamental principles, and you will see in the report that we try to apply those principles as far as possible. So next slides, please. So apologies for the small characters here. So the revenue budget, just to put in context, and I've said that every year, we used to have 120 million in 2010. Now that has been reduced to 13.5 million. So that massive reduction in terms of grant coming from central government. And you will see that more and more funding for services is coming through council tax and adult social care precept. So you will see there's a graph how much. Then the maximum council tax and adult social care precept. So that's the referendum says 2.99 council tax and 2% precept. And this budget, that is a recommendation from officers and will be subject to full council approval. And then additional funding of 19.2 million, of which 12.9 million is new additional grant excluding. So we received 19 million, and I will take you through those 12.7 is additional grant funding. So there's an acknowledgement from central government that local government finance is quite under a lot of pressure and stress. So there is 12 million of additional funding for Luton. So I'll take you through the breakdown of those and how those funding have been applied. We have to take into account again the context, the pay and price inflation, just those two accounts for 12.5 million. And it's always good to put in context that 1% increase in council tax brings us less than £1 million. So when you're talking about 12.5 million in pay and inflation, that's put a bit in context, And then you've got increase in demand, and that's what I've said. There's 90 million. So I'll take you through where those 90 million, how we have sort of which areas of the council budget we are spending those 19. There's Q2, as I said earlier, there's a core pressures of around 13 million, but what is being carried forward, because there will be some of one-off, is 16.6 million. Now, the additional grant which we've received, that too will go towards funding of those pressures, which is 24-25, because government has acknowledged that like homelessness or social care or children's services, we needed more money. So you will see that pressure, which is 24-25, is carried forward in 25-26, and bulk of those additional money, which is 12.7, is going towards funding those current year pressures. The savings delivered in 24-25 amounts to around 5 million, and that was roughly what was budgeted. But as I've mentioned, Chair, is the Q2, there's circa 13 million, because we've declared quite a lot of additional budget pressures in 24-25 Q2. We've got a balanced budget. We are not using reserves, but a budget is always as good as when it's prepared, then circumstances or things can change. But you've got a contingency which we can, so the unknown when it's happened. Any project, any budget, you have to put some general contingency just just in case. 25-26 budget is set against a very uncertain financial environment. So inflation, we don't know. Hopefully, inflation will start to come down. Cost of living crisis still, we are looking at number of homelessness or stabilized, but at time it goes up. Demographic changes, aging population, especially education need transport. So still the environment is not that stable for you to plan and have sort of as much as possible in a budget. And the prospect of significant changes to government support to local government as a result of fair funding review and business rate reset. So the settlement we have received from central government is 1 year. So there is a fair funding review taking place. So hopefully the next settlement will have a 3-year settlement. It's better to plan then. So every year, like this year, come November, we had around 6-7 million gap. And you see what? So when Christmas the was announced, there was 6.2 million additional, which was like a lifeline for us to balance. So councils like, I will take like Luton, we've got high needs, high deprivation, low tax base. In prior years, we were not getting a fair share of the final settlement. This year, you will see there's a graph there. So that helps us because over the past, we haven't been receiving our fair share of the settlement. So those are the things which is uncertainty we have to work within. But As I said, council is quite complex, a big unitary, there's big budget, demand services. We just have to monitor and manage those. So next slide, please. So quickly, this gives you a little bit on the printout. I don't think you have color. So on this one, you will see those colors. So it's much better. Look at the first two, the blue and the red one. It says inflation and employee costs. It's in the region of 12 million. So that should start with a budget every year we have in that region then. Then the next one you will see is demographic growth, 7.8 million. And then you've got the overspend, which is in 24-25 being carried forward 25-26. And the reason we are carrying forward, because most of these are demand-led. So those are the pressures already. People are getting sort of adult social care, getting care. You've got a special education need. Those children are getting transport. So those are very much sort of demand-led. And we've got a program to deliver saving, but that 11.6, we've done as much as possible. That's why it's being carried forward. And you will see that an acknowledgement from central government that we need additional money to fund those pressures. And then you will see 8.9 million. That is to do with the debt servicing, but then you've got income from the debt servicing. So I will take you through those as well. So in a nutshell, you will see, and if you add all these things, it's come in the region, I think, around 43 million. So those are the costs, which is compared with last year. Yeah, it's come up to 48 million roughly. So there are some comments on the right-hand side. So pay award, inflation, service pressures, and interest rate. And those are the things which contribute towards the biggest staff costs. And the next slides, please. So now on the other side of the coin is where the money is coming from. So you will see the bulk of this, you will see on the blue and the red on your right-hand side on the chart. There's 4.2 and 6.4, which comes to nearly 10.6 million. And that is the council transformation program and deficit recovery plan. So in the budget report and in the green book, you will see that there is a breakdown of those line by line, those savings. Yeah, and you will see the detail. I'm quite happy if there's any of those you want to go through, but if there's a specific one, then I'll have to take it back. Now, then you will see 11.4 million, that says additional income. So roughly there's a breakdown on the right-hand side, and you will see main, new, or additional grant. So that is the point I've made earlier. We received 12.7 million of additional, and there's an acknowledgement from central government that we need. So you will see first children's services prevention grant 1.2, homelessness prevention grant 2.4, social care grant 2.8, but the one which is quite important to note here is what we call the recovery grant, 6.3 million. And why Luton has received a bigger share of the 800 million pot is because we've got deprivation, we've got high needs, and you've got the low tax base. So when you got the low tax base, you put 1% on your precept, you don't get the same income as an authority where there's a high tax base. But adult social care is adult social care, the same cost. But if you put precept to fund your adult social care cost and your precept is not bringing that amount of income, that's where government tries to equalize that anomaly and gives recovery grant 6.2 million. Let's hope in the new settlement, we have the same formula, and basically how central government has managed to allocate resources towards councils like Luton is they're adopting a new formula, and that new formula has been applied a long time ago, which takes into account your population, your need, your deprivation, and your tax base. And that's we were all hoping for, and that basically is allocating more money to council, deprived council. Yeah. And then you will see on the left-hand side, there is specific grant, there's business rate grant, there's services grant. So you've got the detail there to give you a detailed account. But one of the things you will see is the one which is on the left-hand side, 10.2, and that's what is local taxation. So local taxation is taking quite a big element of our funding now. So any increase, the biggest funding is local taxation. Yeah. So in a nutshell, the whole budget revolves on those two slides. On one hand, your cost is going up, on one hand your income. So the next slide will tell you how we balance a budget. So you've got what is on the right hand side, like we call it a waterfall. So it starts with 11.6, which is a deficit, and then you add all these blue, mean these are additional pressures. So pay 7.6, inflation 5 million, growth, another growth 12 million of growth, which has gone in the budget, and then this is 25, 26 growth and debt servicing and contingency and reserve. Then on the right hand side, which is the green, how the budget get balanced. So you've got transformation 4.2, DRP 6.4, investment income, RSC and other grants, 12.2 million of that is this additional grant. And then you've got council tax and you've got adult social care precepts. And then there is a little bit of collection fund surplus. So you will see on the top, the things which goes up on the numbers, and the right hand side, you will see that's a waterfall chart, which is how we balance the budget. It's the same thing, but the 2 slides prior, but it's more in terms of a like waterfall chart. Okay, next slide, please. Thank you. Now it's good to know what the future looks like. So you will see on the left hand side, we're saying with the 6.46 and 4.2, those are deficit recovery plan and the transformation, and the budget is balanced. But still, you have to bear in mind that you have to deliver that 10.7, and delivering this level of savings can always prove a challenge, but we've got to make sure that we've got a plan and we have to start to deliver as early as possible. And then when you look at the future, we are still working on what the future looks like. And what this is showing here is we've got a gap of 9.36, 7.2, and 6.5. So if you add those, I think it come roughly to 24 million. So every year we have in the region of 6, 7. Why it's a bit higher in 26, 27? Because you will see there's a grant which you receive is called extended producer responsibility. So we don't know whether that will ongoing. So if it's one-off, it drops out next. And because you've got collection fund, it drops out. And then it stabilizes around 6, 7 every year we get. So those sort of figures. And that's why every year I say, if you look at your pay, you got your inflation and your demographic growth, which is unavoidable. And then when you look at your council tax, we start with a deficit budget every year. And that's a bit, but let's hope the next sort of local government finance settlement try to give us a bit more certainty where you can plan. So the next slide, please. And there I've already covered, but you will see what is the first bullet point, the core spending power. Core spending power is how much government provides additional grant, and if everybody exercises the increase in council tax, how much increase we are getting. So you will see nationally is 3.2, but for Luton is 8.8. In the past, it was slightly a bit the other way. Nationally, there was, let's say, 3.2, 3.3. Luton was getting 2.9 or 3. Yeah, so we were getting below the national average, but this year you will see is 8.8. And that's where the recovery grant of 6.7 just tilt the way. So which is good because we've got the low tax base and you've got deprivation and additional cost. Then the other thing which I would like to touch here is employers' national insurance. So the one bullet point from the second one from below. So, you know, national insurance contribution is going up. A lot of local government will be compensated. Whether you will be compensated for the full amount, we don't know. So the total national insurance contribution increase pressure is around, I think, 3.1 or 3.2. I'm sure those who read the report. But we're not expecting 100% compensation. So I think I've allowed for sort of 1.7 or similar figures. So the final figure will be known when we get the final settlement, which will be around beginning of February. Yeah, but I've set aside some provision just in case if it turned out to be lower than what expecting. But I think the figure will be there or thereabout. Yeah, so I've put some just in case. As I said, you've got extended producer responsibility with a one-off grant, which is 3.1. Now, potentially that might be ongoing, and that is basically to help council improve their recycling rate and recycling plastic and everything. So that's in a nutshell the provisional settlement. So those 2 or 3 areas I've mentioned, those are quite, especially the top one, 8.8%. That's section I can't complain. Yeah. So, but we know national context is quite difficult in terms of finance, but for Luton, I'm quite pleased that we've got that additional money. Yeah, so on average, we got 8.8. Nationally, everybody got 3.2. So 3.2 on their existing funding, we've got 8.8. Yeah, but still is a challenge. Despite you will see, despite receiving the additional, still we have to deliver 11 million of savings to have a balanced budget. Because when you look at social care, everything, but at least is for the first year now, we are getting more money as compared to the national average. So next slide, please. So I will take you through the capital bits. So you've got the detail in the green book, each line of the capital bits, but just coming back to, there was a question raised by one of the members, I can't remember, about the 2 million for the railway station, but that's not going ahead. It is a pipeline project which will happen then, yeah, but it's not something active which is going ahead. So I look at that. So that is there. In the next executive report, I'll just make a note that this is like pipeline. There are projects which we call pipeline, but that's railway project is not committed, it's not going ahead. But a couple of projects, when you look at the capital program, is Central Library Works, 7.5 million. There's significant investment going in IT, 6.3. There's Employee Experience Program, 850. Transport replacement, that's replacing our vehicle. They are quite old, and replacing our, not our waste vehicle, but our fleet vehicles, because we use our vehicles to carry children in terms of transport. Footway upgrade, as I said, there's a big sort of area where significant investment will have to go through, so 3 million. And the highway maintenance program, again, all the potholes of the road and everything, which now you will see the investment which has gone over the last 3 years, it's a region of 9-10 million. So 6.3 million is additional. Yeah. And those are the main. I'm quite happy if you got any individual capital program, but again, all this is subject to approval. And all these will go through a business case. Some of them will need to have a detailed business case, but once the budget gets approved, then executive has responsibility to deliver the budget. So next slide, please. So that's to do with the capital bit. So treasury, you will see anything when we borrow, it's having impact on treasury. So normally, if you borrow 10 million, give and take rule of thumb, it will have a 1 million impact on the revenue budget. And right now you will see additional borrowing this year is 15, and that's mainly to do with acquiring additional temporary accommodation purchase. The total borrowing is estimated as nearly 922, and half of that is for the airport, which is 507 million. And then you got the estate project, which is significant. So excluding those investment and commercial properties, the report says how much is really service related. So interest is going up to 21 from 18.4 because some of them is borrowing to fund some of the investment, and the return from LAL stays more or less 41 million because there is no additional borrowing to LAL. So over the last time COVID, there was 507. Since then, there is no additional borrowing. And if there is any additional borrowing to LAL, that normally goes to a normal process, goes to FRG, executive, full council for approval. And that has to be supported by a robust business case. One of the things we haven't included dividend. So the budget, we don't include dividend. The policy here is if you get any dividend, that dividend will be utilized to fund capital program. So the ongoing revenue budget, we are not using dividend to fund ongoing costs, because dividend can be one-off, can go up, can go down. Next slide, please. That's about public health. We don't know yet what is going to be that public health. So if you look at the last bullet point, public health is not increased at all or increased by 1 or 2%. So once we get the final announcement for public health, finance business partners with department, they're working on the numbers, but we just have to adjust. Public health has got a little bit of reserves. So if the settlement is less than what we expected, then they might have to use that reserves. Because public health as well, you will see they have to pay contractual inflation, pay award. So the cost in public health goes according to those budget pressures and inflation. Next slide, please. Then there's risk and uncertainties is the final settlement is only 1 year. Hopefully next year we'll get a 3-year settlement. Then it will be much easier to plan. Either way, whether it's more or less, it's much easier. I think growth has to be managed because you will see this year we started with We did put additional money in social care, but after Q2, the overspend was quite significant. So we have to keep an eye on that. And not only growth in demand, the cost, but children's services, this is a very specialist area, and sometimes one additional case can cost 200 to 300,000. So just you get 3 additional complex, your budget can be adverse by £1 million. Inflation, but let's hope inflation stays where it is. Interest rate 3 weeks ago was quite worrying because the borrowing cost for the government was very high, but over the last 2 weeks, it has come down. So let's hope that trend stays. But sometimes you will see the base rate comes down, but sometimes the cost of borrowing from central government does not necessarily follow the base rate. But we borrow at gilt, which is the borrowing rate at central government. Pay, we've put a 3% assumptions. So the pay award will be decided not now, but maybe around June time. But if there is more or less, we just have to look at that additional pay. If there's more money, we have to draw down on contingency. I think we've talked about dividend. We talk about capital program, treasury, public health. HRA has already been discussed by Atika. In schools budget, one of the things we have to look at is in the high needs block. That's an area which is coming under quite a lot of pressure. A lot of council has got significant overspend in the high needs block, and that is causing the section 1 set to potentially say whether they will have issue section 114. Our schools high needs block is okay, but still they are using reserves and they are trying to transfer some other pot of money, but that gets discussed by schools forum. And I've got Atif Iqbal, who's a finance business partner, who work with their schools, with the service director, they're very good with working with their schools. So I think next slide, I think we are coming to an end now. So the time scales is tonight, FRG. All the comments from FRG and a recommendation goes to the executive, which is on 10th of February, and then full council on the 24th of February. Now the final local government finance settlement is expected around 10th of February. So I won't have enough time, Chair, to update the executive report because, so whatever happens, and I expect there might be some movement because the new settlement, it's quite some big numbers which government has announced in the provisional. So government will be fine-tuning, especially the national insurance contribution, which is there. That's the one which is the big. But I don't expect significant. So we can always make some final adjustment, but it won't sort of have a big impact. Fingers crossed. Yeah, let's hope they don't take that recovery of 6.5. Then I'm quite serious. We'll discuss, but if they are significant, then we'll have to discuss any potential significant changes and update the budget report. And if I have to make sure the chair, if you are, if they're significant, I will just brief you as well as chair of FRG and say, or maybe we have to do something and bring something. But that will be very short between 10th of 24th of February. Yeah, I think that's it. Next slide. Yeah, questions. Okay, so that's a bit in a nutshell, but there's much more in the detailed report, which I'm sure we can go through.
Thank you very much indeed, Dev. So, guys, questions? Yes.
The report is very good in very detail. I have a question on page number 4. It's regarding to 25-26, how budget gap has been balanced, Addition is less than the deduction, and it's a difference of 11,645. I want to know about how do you balance and how will it take time, because it's between 25 to 26, maybe next time it's gonna increase. So what type of plan you have to for the deficit budget for 24 to 25? Is that, are we doing some borrowing? And if we are doing borrowing, so what's the interest rate on it? Is that variable or fixed?
So if I can, please, if you can go back on the slides, I think I've got a slide there which probably potentially will answer your question. So if you can present that, please. So you will see on one of the pages where you've got the, if you go up, yeah. So if you go up, yeah, that's the one. Yeah. So you will see, you're absolutely right. 24-25, you got 11.6, which we are saying that's deficit because it's very much demand led. You can't just turn it around. Yeah. So all these 11.6 has been carried forward in 25-26 budget. So we are providing department with additional budget for 11.6. And then that's where the additional grant come from. And that additional grant, which there is an acknowledgement from government, that goes towards funding that 11.6. Yeah. So then you've got the growth of 11.7. You will see pay award inflation. That additional growth is being addressed by this transformation saving and DRP. Yeah. And the rest balance itself out. So pay award, council tax, everything. But if you just concentrate in terms of your point about the deficit, how we're doing it, those 4 lines will explain. So 11.6 budget pressure this year, not expected. A lot of council having the same social care everywhere, homelessness. Government acknowledge, provided 12 million of more money, can take care of the current core gap in the budget. Additional growth coming, 12 million in 25-26. And to balance the budget, we are driving a transformation program DRP of nearly 12 million. Yeah. Now, your question is, halfway through the year, what that looks like is, yeah. The question is, in the transformation and DRP, right now, we are, yeah.
Increase the
Microphone, thank you.
So this is draft. Why we say draft is when we get the final settlement, then when the one which go to full council will be final budget. That's why at this stage, because it's going through the process and we haven't, yeah. So when the second executive will take everything on board and will recommend it to full council, then becomes the final budget. But until council approve it, that day it becomes the real budget thing. Yeah. But those questions are very fair because the transformation and DRP savings is quite and you will see there is quite a lot which is included there. There is line by line sort of detail analysis in the is it my thing which is line by line analysis, and every department has got the program and they have to sort of one of the things you will see in the budget report, we are assuming that especially on the income side, only 6 months in terms of delivery. So we're not assuming the whole week delivered in 1 year because it takes time to deliver. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? David.
Yes, thank you. I find the summaries been very useful, Dev. Thank you. I want to just pick up on a couple of things, if I may, for the moment. The current year that we're going through at the moment, before we move on to this new budget, there were a very large number of savings which were due to be made during the course of the year. We were assured very specifically at full council that all of the savings that were slated for the current year we're in had been achieved. That was stated at full council. The reason for my question now is that I need to understand whether that statement is true, because as we look at your budget proposals here, if I look, for example, at page 19, and we look at 19 and the paragraph 45, it's still saying that there is going to be a difficulty even in this year that's now being budgeted to keep the savings at a level that's necessary. And only part of those savings can be put into this budget in order to be safe with the way that the budget has been constructed. So I guess what I'm really looking for as a total question is savings this year, whether they're going to be passed on to next year. According to paragraph 45 on page 19, only part of next year's savings are going to be budgeted, and so they're going to be moved forward. So where do we actually stand on the savings that are required to balance the budget?
Okay, yeah. So I'm glad you read the report. So because it took me quite during Christmas, New Year, I was writing the report. So I'm glad you read it. So if you look at page 18, paragraph 40, okay, that talks about the 24-25 deficit recovery plan. So if you look in total, okay, that's why I've said most have been achieved. So there might be a bit more to go. So we don't know Q3 what this will bring us, but based on Q2 figures, that's what we say, the 24, 25, 25, 26 savings, which is said in the main has been achieved. What has caused this big deficit is additional pressures, which was declared at Q2 and are reported. So mainly in social care was the biggest one. I think I don't know, 7 or 8 million and homelessness and supported living. So quite a lot was declared in Q2, and it's very difficult, especially when you have in social care homelessness to turn around. This is not about deficiency, it's about people living in accommodation, and you can't just simply turn around 7-8 million. So that's why one of the things is, with the additional support from central government, there's an acknowledgement, especially on those areas where we've reported housing, social care, temporary accommodation, special educational need, supported living, government has provided additional. So there was an acknowledgement that they need more grant. As I've said last time when we were talking about Q2, we could have started a really drastic program in Q2 to address those overspend, but we're just let's wait and see what will come in the settlement. And we're right to say, let's wait for settlement, and that has dealt with those additional deficits. So coming back to your first, yes, in the main, what we said was delivered. But what we couldn't anticipate is additional growth, and that's what we end up with a deficit. So second point is you said about the transformation. So absolutely, we if you will see here in paragraph, let me see, I just seen that. Yeah, paragraph 44, the paragraph you mentioned, Councillor Wayne, is it says the total deficit in the region of recovery and in the region of 5.5 million, but because it takes time to get these projects up and running, there's an assumption that 4.1 will be delivered in pathway, and the balance will be delivered in the following year, 26-27. So in terms of delivery as well, we are trying to be cautious, not to say the whole thing will be delivered from 1st of April, because some will be delivered halfway, some will be delivered at the beginning, some will be delivered at the end. And now if you look at the 11.6 million, which is the deficit recovery, 4.2 and 6.4, there's a couple of projects which we have already started delivery, and that is the waste contract, which we've already tendered. That will deliver an additional $1 million of savings. And then you got the IT contract, which has already been sort of brought in-house, that we expect to deliver around 600,000. So out of this 11 million, saying 1.6 million is more green rather than amber. And we have to manage that. So we're not saying everything will be delivered at the beginning of the year. So I don't know whether that answers your question, Councillor Wayne.
Yes, it goes some way. necessarily all the savings issue is very complex. I understand that. But I still have some reservations about some of the cost saving figures. Going back, and if I may, Chair, just ask a further question. The budget is presuming no dividend from LAO or Luton Rising, whatever you want to call it. I understand that we're still in part trying to recover from the force majeure type situation that we were in. And there is talk in this budget about building up Luton Rising reserves. Is there a reason why there is such an emphasis on building up reserves rather than us taking up dividend?
Yeah, there is an option there. But just to put in context, before COVID, Luton Rising had a reserves of in the region of 19 million, because Luton Rising is a private company, so directors are responsible for the financial management of that company. So there was a reserves, and in the past we had been long enough in this council to know as cloud and the financial crisis. So when those happen, there's a dip in income, there's a dip in concession fee, and we manage. I think the council and the LAL manage to come out of that. COVID was a big event, the Black Swan event. We don't expect this to happen I don't know, next 50, 60, or 100 years. So still it's good. We might have other minor shocks, like again, I'll start whatever. So it's good to build the reserves and not to leave the company without anything as a contingency. So that's why now the company is generating profit. The passengers are coming close to the pre-pandemic level. So first thing is to rebuild that 19 or 20. But because we've learned some lessons from COVID, I think there was a dividend policy which came to the council executive. So we've approved a dividend policy, and that dividend policy says you have to get it. If I'm not, there's too many numbers, I may get it wrong here, by 630,000. So after that, then at least the directors of LAL as well, because they declare dividend, they have to make sure there's a cash there, there's distributable profit there. They have to take a lot of things into account, and for them as well to say whether it's prudent for them to declare dividend. So having a reserves of around 30 million will give them that. So if there's the other thing, if there's any sort of downside, then if they have already committed to declare dividend, then they might still declare that dividend and downside draw down from reserves. So that reserves will act as a buffer for them.
All right. Okay, I think Councillor Farouk was first.
Thank you, Chair. I think Dave has already answered the question, mine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. On the dividend, I just wanted to correct my understanding on the dividend from Luton Rising. My understanding is that dividend can't be put towards services. It can only be used for capital expenditure. Is that right?
Yes, because dividend can fluctuate. I think I'm stating the obvious here, whereas our revenue budget is ongoing. So if we increase, let's say right now we put pay award, that will stay. So it's always good not to fund ongoing costs with one-off income. And dividend being one-off, it can go up and down. Anything will go towards capital, not revenue.
Thank you for that. I was going to say, thank you for all the hard work you've done in putting this budget together, and thank you to you and your team. I know there's a lot of work gone into that, so can you please pass that on to them? Just to get my understanding of this is, I mean, I'm heartened that we've got a balanced budget. Okay, it is dependent on transformation savings and DRP savings, but still, I'm pleased and heartened. Is it correct that our budget's gone up by, our settlement from government's gone up by 19.2 million, of which 12.7 is new funding?
Yes, So we receive quite significant amount of funding from central government. Yeah, and you're right. In that table, it says, oh, these are new funding.
Thank you for that. And then we've got another additional 6.3 million for capital expenditure for highways. Is that right as well?
So yeah, the highways, we put 6.3 because we look at the next sort of 3 years, 4 years. So you will see in the green book, there's more money getting into highways.
Thank you. I mean, it's pleasing to see that a Labour government is starting to repair the finances of local government, and it's pleasing to see that they've recognised the deprivation and the challenges we face in Luton and has given us 12.7 million additional funding this year. So I'm pleased about that. Picking up the other point, obviously, as a scrutiny board, we need to make sure that we end up with a balanced budget next year. And Chair, I was wondering, as part of our role, we should be monitoring the transformation and DRP savings going forward as a scrutiny board, because they are going to be quite critical for us achieving a balanced budget.
I mean, indeed, they are critically important. And as I understand it, we currently only monitor them on the quarterly budget monitoring reports. If you're suggesting we need a specific report on the transformation programme or the achievement of savings included in the budget, I'm sure that can be arranged.
I would welcome the views of Dev and obviously as our Section 151 officer. I don't want to increase his workload, but I think it's quite important for scrutiny that we are monitoring that, because that's going to be quite key.
Can I just add in, Chair, if I may? I absolutely agree. It's just to give a better focus on it.
You do get separate report. So I think if you put it on your forward plan, I think there is a detailed report on transformation, if I'm not mistaken, coming in February. So the quarterly report, I do report, but I report at high level. The detailed report comes to FRG. Yeah. The frequency maybe quarterly, so it can coincide with our quarterly, so that will be much better.
Okay.
Thank you, Dev.
If we are going to seek separate detailed reports on those two areas, I think it would be helpful if you could drop Matt and I an email explaining exactly what you're looking for, and I'm sure it can be incorporated into the work programme, but I think we need to understand exactly what you're asking for. Hussein, did you have a
in terms of the transformation and the savings? I mean, it seemed to be a question that the number of savings are carried forward over the next year. And I think we need to be pretty clear that having a balanced budget, but there is a very small bit that may not have been covered, and that needs to be explained to the members as well, the reasoning behind it for why it was not delivered.
So if you are referring to 24-25, the question you raised, 24-25, by and large, in the main, 5 million has been delivered. What has been carried forward, the 11 million, is more to do with the additional budget pressures. So we try to turn this around, but as I said, at Q2, we're talking about pressures in homelessness and the social. It takes years to turn this around. So there's a transformation program which will try to control that demand. And in 25-26, there's 11.7, but we acknowledge that not everything can be delivered in 1 year. So the 6 months I see the plan is to deliver the whole savings, but straddle over 2 years. So it's not being carried forward, but it's just saying we deliver 6 months here, 6 months. We might deliver some earlier, some late, some we might deliver new saving, some saving might not be delivered. So we'll, as you pointed out, we'll bring regular report quarterly. At officers level, we are going to monitor that monthly. The big one, small one, fine, nothing much will change in 1 month, but the big one where we've got monthly, we'll monitor. Yeah, so there is, Council has set up a PMO office, and we've recruited our own full-time permanent staff. So there is continuity and there is the knowledge, everything stays. And then finance is working closely with the project management office. And there is, like adult social care, we've got additional resources in terms of business intelligence and terms of the data. So there's a lot of resources is going towards really understanding, really having finger on the pulse, and just to monitor if something happens, then what we are going to do in terms of mitigation. Because 3 months is quite a long time. So some of the big one we monitor monthly.
Thank you for that. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Dave, for the job put on and also for confirming this. There's been more money that's come to this budget from central government, which is very helpful at this time where Luton is. I just want to say about look at the capital bits, the investment, which was stated from your first slides, but wasn't very clear when it gets to bits. So I just want to confirm the bits now, where it says the bits for the central library, end user computing, where you've listed all that. Are they, it's a draft budget, I know, are there more bits going to come into that, or is that the final budget for that, or it's going to be reduced? Is it going to be reduced, or is it going to be more allocated for that?
So when we say it's a draft budget, it's a draft capital, is because the only time it becomes final when it's get approved by full council. So the capital budget, when you say capital bits, the bits went through a process, was discussed at officers level. There was prioritization, how much you can afford, how much you can't afford, and what you've got in front of you. Those are the bits which officers put forward to the executive. Now, executive has gone through first executive, second executive, based on your sort of recommendation. You've got any issues which you have to raise, and then you go to full council. So what you see, I'm sure everybody has received a copy of the green book, because that has been, if not, get a copy, and that green book goes in detail. So as it is then, this is the capital program, with the exception of the point we've raised last time is about the railway project, the rail station. That is there as a pipeline, but it's not that we are starting the project. It depends on how much funding we get. Council is not going to invest in those funding. But as it stands, this is the capital program going for recommendation.
Okay, anybody else? No, I've just got one practicality I would appreciate some guidance on. Dev, you say the final government settlement is due around the 10th of February. The executive is due to approve its final budget on the 10th of February. How do you have confidence that there isn't going to be a last-minute change that will make a significant difference to the council's position?
That's a very good question, I hope. So in normal years, we get a provisional settlement, and the final settlement, there or thereabouts. Yeah. This year, it's new formula funding, new allocation. There's quite significant thing in terms of national insurance, everything. So, and government themselves, like MHCLG, is holding back some money. So in their allocation, they haven't allocated everything. So they will see how the pressures built in. I'm sure there will be representation from other council. District has got their own pressures. So then unitary authorities, metropolitan, London Borough. So I'm sure everybody will look at their bottom line and will say, so that's why government is keeping some money to do some reallocation. Whether the government will start to take significant money out of Luton or the council, I don't think so, because people are approving the budget, but there might be some fine tuning, and that's why I've put £1 million in contingency. So let's hope when they do this fine tuning, you get a bit more money. So it's always good. So we can, yeah. But if they said, no, we'll take some money, there's £1 million which I've put there. So it's difficult, Chair, But you're absolutely right. And you will see in my first slide, I've said, if there's something significant, suddenly we say, oh, we are going, it's not usual. If something's going to happen, I'm sure Emmett Selji will go and say, HM Treasury, give us a bit of money, because council have already taken the budget. So, but if there's significant changes, now I say, hang on, yeah, it's been completely revised, which I don't think so it will happen. But just in case, then as I say this, then I have to prepare something. If it's substantive, then on the day when it's going to present it to second executive chair, I'll be presenting that. So I will verbally if I can. Otherwise, when it goes to full council, then we'll deal with that. Yeah. So yeah, let's hope not.
Hope springs eternal, yes. Okay, everybody's had the go that they want. There has been a suggestion that we should thank the finance team for their work in putting this budget together. I'm quite happy to see that as our conclusion. Does anybody have any specific recommendations they want to put forward?
Yeah. Can I just one thing? Talking about change, there will be one minor change, and I wanted to brief you, and I'll put a note here. So if you look at the budget is balanced, but in BTS, okay, we're expecting additional income because BTS charge HRA, and that's what Atika mentioned. So the additional income BTS will be in the region of 300,000 or 400,000. So that will, the budget you're looking at it, if we get additional BTS income, that will bring the budget into a surplus. But since we are relying 500,000 on collection fund, I will remove the reliance. So with that adjustment, the budget will be balanced. So it's a fine tuning things which we are doing. Yeah. So there will be one change, but I just wanted to let you know so that when you come to the second negative, you say, Dave, but that was not. So just around 300,000 or 400,000. Yeah. And that is surplus, which I will then draw less from collection fund. Thanks, Richard. I appreciate for your kind words to thank finance, but it's a teamwork and it's not easy to do all these things during Christmas when government announced the settlement in mid of December. Thank you.
Okay. Any specific suggestions anyone wants to include in our conclusion? No. Thank you very much indeed, Dev.
Thank you, Chair.
We move on then to, I think, page 212. Have I got that right? Okay. Right, who is it, Joanne? Are you presenting this? Yeah, when you're ready.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Joanne Nelson. I am the head of private sector housing. The purpose of this report this evening is to consult the Finance Review Group on the proposals to increase houses in occupation licence fees. Now, we're all aware that housing conditions have a huge impact on health outcomes, and that substandard living conditions not only significantly affect a person's mental health, but exposure to things such as damp and mould can contribute to a myriad of health risks. Research consistently demonstrates the profound impact of housing on health outcomes, highlighting the disproportionate burden on deprived and low-income communities. The private sector housing team function is to enforce housing standards within the private rented sector in Luton and is crucial to the council achieving its 2040 vision that everyone lives in a decent and safe home. To ensure good standards are achieved in HMOs, the Housing Act 2004 mandates that local authorities licence HMOs with 5 or more unrelated occupants who share common facilities such as bathrooms and kitchens. Government guidance stipulates that the costs associated with administering this licensing scheme should be recovered through fees paid by the licence applicants, and that licence applications are processed within a reasonable time frame, and that it undertakes monitoring to ensure continued compliance with the licence conditions. Now, this proposal relates to mandatory HMO licensing only. Should the additional and selective licensing schemes come into force, they will be subject to their own fee structure. The current fees for licences do not fully cover the cost of the licensing operations and compliance work required to drive up standards. The proposals in the report and appendix set out a new model of fees that will enable us to cover our operating costs and drive up standards. The recommendation this evening is that you agree and support our proposals to increase the licensing fees. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, yes, I'll come to you in a moment, Hussein. I just wanted to say before we move into the debate generally, I find it difficult to believe that any of our members are actually going to object to this. So detailed questions, yes, Hussein, you were first.
Sorry, it's more of a comment. I think we ought to go with the maximum fee, because if we want to see the quality of the housing improve, then really the cost needs to be covered. And I think there's got to be unanimity among us that we should go ahead and do that.
If what you're saying, Hussein, is that we agree to the proposal and recommend that the maximum fee should be introduced, then if you're formally moving that, I'm quite happy to second it. Anybody else want to come in here? Yes.
I think, thank you, Chair. I do support these proposals and thank you for bringing them. I just wanted some assurances that this will lead to an increase in your resources and for you to actually tackle some of the illegal HMOs we have across the town and actually improve. So do we have your assurance on that? Because I fully support that.
Yes, that is the purpose of this proposal. Currently, we don't have sufficient staff to really drive up the standards to do the work that's required. And these licensing fees will see a big increase in income that will enable us to expand the team to go out and do that valuable work.
Yes, Dan.
Yes, I'm also, like everybody else, I think, in this committee, I'm totally in favour of doing this as much as we can. Just a point of clarification for me, just so that I understand, on page 212, item 4, it says the current fees which are levied to applicants do not fully cover the costs, etc., etc. But it then goes on to quote some numbers. It says there are approximately 705 HMOs in the town, and of those, 335 remain unlicensed. Is that 705 HMOs above the minimum level? Because there are lots of HMOs in the town below the level where it says it's got to be licensed. Just a clarification, please, just so I understand.
No, the 335 refers to HMOs that should currently be licensed. So that's HMOs that have 5 or more people that are unrelated. The yes, there are a lot more that currently don't require licensing, and that would be covered by the additional licensing scheme should that come in. So this report relates purely to mandatory HMOs, which are the 5 and above people sharing.
That's great. I see the smaller HMOs becoming more and more and more of a problem, certainly around the town when I see it.
Anybody else? Just some clarification, please, then, from me. Where is this decision actually going to be made? Is it as an executive matter?
Yes, it's due to go to executive on the 10th of February.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. So I guess from looking around and what we've heard, our decision is to support the proposal and to recommend to executive that the maximum legally possible fees should be introduced. Is that what we're agreeing? Sounds good to me. Thank you very much indeed for that.
Thank you very much.
I think that moves us on to our work programme. Have I got that right, Matt?
That's correct, yeah.
Which is on page 233. Yeah, okay, Matt, you've got some updates for us?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Since this forward plan has been published, we've got a couple of additional reports. On the 27th of February, there will be a housing IT overspend report being submitted. And on the 24th of April, there'll also be 2 reports in regards to council tax. One of those is the exceptional hardship. So there's 3 additional reports to be included.
Thank you for that. Anybody, any additional items or any? Okay, just to remind you then that if you actually have any ideas of issues you think we should be looking at, just drop an email to Matt and me and we'll do our best to incorporate them in the work programme. I think that moves us on to the private matter. So are you agreeable to the resolution to move into private?